Hi, welcome back to the Pirate Therapist podcast. This is episode number 1. We did an intro yesterday that was just kind of telling you a little bit about who I am and what this is about. Today we have a guest host. His name is Dwayne. He's a good friend of mine. He's going to help me bumble through this because I do better when I have somebody to interact with than when I'm just interacting with a camera. And we're going to see what this looks like when I have somebody to work with. So welcome, Dwayne. It's good to see
Uh,
you. Very happy to have you on board. Today, kind of wanted to talk a little bit about success versus failure. But before we get into that, how about you introduce yourself a little bit and just kind of let
okay.
everybody know a little bit about you?
So I'm Dwayne. I'm old. Not quite as old as Lee here, but geez, it's been 20 plus years that we've been friends. And I currently reside in Texas. I was originally from California, moved to Utah, stayed there, made friends with a pirate. Now I'm in Texas and had to reconnect with my pirate roots. But yeah, I'm a husband and a father of two. And yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Oh, and I'm probably clinically insane, but hey, shh, don't tell anybody.
Mum's the word. Well, as I like to say, we're all crazy. We just have different flavors.
Excellent. My
So,
flavor is nice and toasted brown, which is what makes me so delectable.
all right. Well, let's talk a little bit about success versus failure. Now, I'm assuming that you, like most of us, were raised and we're told set goals, right? Set goals, cross the finish line, achieve the goal, you are a success. Does that sound about right?
Sort of. Yeah, I was told, you know what, you're a man, suck it all up, and you just have to do everything. If you don't do it all right, then you're a failure. So it wasn't so much set a goal; it was more like it's an all or nothing thing,
Well,
So
and that's kind of my point is success versus failure is that mentality. You either cross the finish line, you either achieve the goal to become a success or you're a failure.
no, no, that
And
yeah.
that's kind of the problem that I have is that's the way most of us were raised and we were taught that. But what I believe is a better ideology would be growth versus stagnation.
And honestly, I've just recently started moving that direction. You see, I mean, with the move and everything that we've had to do for the last 2 years, I've been really struggling, especially being in a military town now. It's hard to find like just a little part-time job to get out of the house and make some money. So I was measuring my success on that. Me finding a job, getting a little bit of work, because I don't need to work, but it's nice to have a little extra money. And just recently I realized I can't do that. I'm going to kill myself if I do that. So I have switched to a what can I do to make progress as a
Mm.
person and a husband that I can use those smaller goals so that I can give myself the success, portions of that success to get myself to a feeling like a better person and a successful entity.
Well, right, because we feel good as people. We feel good when we accomplish things, when we feel forward momentum, growth, progress. That's what gives us that feeling of success in life.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we want that. And that's why we need to focus on the growth as opposed to crossing that finish line. If we look at it in terms of a start and a finish line, and that's the goal. I have a goal, there's a start line, we start working on that goal, and then we go all the way till we cross the line, we're finished. A good example of this is college. If someone goes to college, they're like, I'm going to major in this. I'm going to do this. And if once they graduate, they're like, okay, I succeeded at this. I'm okay. I'm good. I got this degree in this degree I wanted to, and now I'm a success. It doesn't really work that way. But how many of those college students go to college, they pick a major, they work towards that major, and then they change their mind as they start going?
It's ridiculous. In fact, I'm very much opposed to college unless you really know what you want to do. I'm more of a try trade school. That's cheaper, more local. Try something like that. Try to figure out what you want before you step into arena. If you make a choice like and don't just go to college because I'm going to college just because you're supposed to go to college. You don't necessarily need. I didn't go to college. Yeah, I'm not the most successful person in the world, but I'm happy. I have a loving family. We have a home, and we respect and look out for each other. We have all the things that I was not. We have the more important goals in life that we don't necessarily instill or weren't instilled in us as children, which is make sure that you have a good family, a solid family, a family that loves each other, that is always there to support each other, rather than just go and achieve X goal by making X amount of money or doing X thing. So,
The point I was trying to make is these students that go to college and they pick a major often change their major.
well,
They go in there, and once they start figuring stuff out, there's a lot of people, especially that I saw, that went into psychology, that by the time they get into it a little bit, they're like, ooh, this is not for me. I don't want to do this. This is not good. And they change their mind. But if we go to that success versus failure thinking, that black and white thinking, what we just did there is, with that mentality, that person, that student is now a failure, even though they learned that that wasn't the career path for them. That wasn't the degree they were going for. They're now a failure because they set a goal. They did not cross the finish line. So they're a failure. So what that does is completely discounts what they learned in the process.
well, yeah, well,
So
and the biggest. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt,
no,
but
go ahead.
the biggest problem I see there is that they're a failure in their own eyes. Because you and I wouldn't look at them as a failure. You'd look at them and say, okay, you realize something and you've grown as a person and you're choosing to change to find a better place. But it's their own mind. I'm a failure because of X.
That's the way we were raised. At least a lot of us, that's the way we were raised. We were raised that unless you cross that finish line, you're a failure. So even though there's nobody there to shout at you that you're a failure, that voice is still in our head saying, you didn't cross the finish line, you're a failure. And we need to change that ideology. We need to change it from success versus failure to progress versus stagnation. So what we want is, we want growth. We want you to learn. We want to have that progression. We want to move forward and have that growth, because that growth, it really is about the journey, not so much the destination, because it's in the journey that we learn and we grow.
Yeah,
What do you think?
exactly. Yeah. No, you're totally right. I mean, and honestly, if you stop looking at, and even if you want to use that old adage of like, survey large fields, cultivate small ones, you can say, I want to go to college and I want to get a degree, and this is the plan now. And as soon as you start college, you say, hey, I'm getting good grades. So that's your small field. And you've set a little goal and you're a success. And then you say, well, I realize this is not what I want to do in the end. I think that's where we need to make the change is, I've realized that I need to change my goal. That is a success in and of itself, to realize that I was on my way to making myself unhappy. Because people who say that they have failed are unhappy people. They're angry, frustrated with life. They have to find a way to change that to learned, therefore I am successful, therefore I still have value.
The value doesn't change, not based on your progression towards a goal or not. What changes is your happiness, your level of satisfaction in your life. We do not feel satisfied when we sit still.
And then that's what I'm saying though, is that some people, I know me personally, when I am unsuccessful, my first thought is that I have lost value because I have failed to achieve said goal. And that is a sickness that I think affects, I see it in my sons. They're unfortunately learning some bad habits from me. But it's like, if they don't do it perfect the first time, they look down on themselves and like, what did I do wrong? Why did I fail? Why am I a failure? But you're not. And so me, who does that all the time, trying to teach someone who's been watching me do it not to do it, it's very different, It's interesting. So, like, everything you're saying is absolutely right.
It's kind of scary how often we pass on our own issues to our children. The things we struggle with, the things that we try and overcome, and then we turn around and just hand it right off onto our children.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a little frightening to me, how often that is the case. But, just like hopefully our parents hoped for us, we did or are doing better and realizing more than they did. And then we want our children to do better and realize more than what we did. And we want future generations to continue to improve. Again, going back to growth, what we don't want is stagnation. Stagnation is scary. If you look at the people that are the most unhappy in life, the most struggling with depression or really feeling unfulfilled, these are the ones that if you look at them, there's probably a lot of stagnation going on. There's this mental thing that we do where when we're depressed, depression wants to make you turn inward. It wants you to isolate. It wants you to pull all into yourself and become your own entity. And it gives you what I call depression lies. It tells you you don't have the energy to go out with your friends tonight, or you don't have what it takes to do what's needed, or your friends don't really want to be brought down by you. And we tell ourselves these things. The end result is always isolation. It pulls us away. It makes us want to hide, to stay home, to isolate, even isolate from family. We just want to go off and be by ourselves. And that really is, if you look at it, that's the stagnation right there, because there's no growth.
Exactly. No, and hey, come on. Now, I don't want to get into details, but you watched this with me for 10 years with my living situation before I moved to Texas. You saw me in this stagnant pool of intrusive forces in my family life. We'll just say it that way. And I was always just frustrated and angry. And then when I got together with my friends, I was more interested in, a lot of times, more interested in just getting drunk and self-medicating so that I didn't have to, because I was free and I didn't have to feel. And so now I can, binge on something not good. And it was very, I wouldn't say self-destructive, but it was not very conducive to growth.
Not a lot of growth. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, around there was a lot of growth, but not as
A
a
lot of girth
person.
growth.
Yes, girth.
Yeah, I've grown that way myself.
It's okay. You make it look good,
Oh, why, thank you.
Well, I said. So, but yeah, but that's the thing is that, I mean, the worst part was the whole time I realized what was happening, but I felt powerless to do anything about it, and I was wrong the whole time. That was the lie that I was telling myself, is I couldn't change the situation. And honestly, as soon as I changed my living environment with my family and we got here, we as a family, I have never been stronger. That is the growth that we wanted to see. Even my wife has grown as an individual, realizing some of the toxicity in her life and going, I don't need this anymore. I want to be happy. So the growth happened once I was willing to believe that I could change the things. Once I got out of that lie of the depression of I am trapped here forever, please help me. So
that's rough. Depression sucks. And the thing is, you convince yourself that you need to pull away while telling yourself that it's other people pulling away, while telling yourself that it's other people that are pushing you, or you're doing it for their good, or whatever. The lies we tell ourselves are always geared towards isolation.
yeah, is that not like the most self-destructive, when you get that messiah complex of I'm going to save everyone by getting away from everyone? Because I mean, we both know that there's nobody in this podcast who's ever done anything like that. I am talking about myself, but
I wasn't thinking about you.
see, that's it. But that's the thing, is like that's the kind of, it's just so many flaws in the way that we grew up as kids. With it, by having these, you need to have this big goal, and if you don't make it, you're a failure. By not being able to recognize that growth as a human being, whether it's personal growth of understanding yourself or growth of being able to communicate and interact with others, these are the things that give you the value that will, and give you the success that you need to achieve what the end goal should be, which is happiness and a sense of self-worth and growing. That was what our goal should be, not get to X education.
I think the self-esteem and satisfaction comes from the growth.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes growth sucks. You
Yes,
got to
you're not
learn
wrong
it the
there.
hard way. But you're right. That's where we get a lot of that what we need to sustain ourselves. You're totally right. And of course, you went to school for this. I've had to learn this the hard way.
I'm going to say something that's a little Probably going to get me burned at the stake a little bit from a lot of my compatriots, but I think that most of us don't use a great portion of what we learned in school. We learn it. It's a foundational piece. It kind of gets stored away as a reference material. Most of what I use on a day to day in my office is what I learn day to day in my office from person to person. And that's the stuff I'm not sure you can teach from a textbook.
Well, no, because I mean, look, you have a concept of this is a mental issue that we would refer to in your profession. Here's X mental issue. The truth is that that mental issue, you may treat 1,000 people who are really close to that, but no one ever fits that cookie cutter thing. Every single person is an individual, has to be treated as an individual. Otherwise, you try to fit them in your mold, and then all you're doing is hurting them in the long run. Wow, dude, this is not good. Why do I feel like I'm sounding smart? I'm gonna blame it on you. So
No, you are smart.
yeah, but I mean, that's the thing is that that's why what I'm trying to do with my sons right now is teach them growth. So part of the growth I try to teach them is as I've decided I'm going to learn to cook all kinds of stuff. I grab them and say, you are going to learn these recipes because one day I will not be here and I want you to be able to cook for yourself. And I don't want you trying to eat fast food and pre-processed food all the time.
All the stuff we used to eat.
Yeah, I'm like, you need to do better. Like, I mean, heck, I made horchata for the first time, and everybody likes it, they love it, and I'm like, all right, how can I make my own non-sugared condensed milk so I can get sweetness without all that sugar because diabetic? So, guess what I'm doing tomorrow after I work on my car? I'm going to make my own condensed milk to make a new batch of horchata because.
So you found a way to do that?
Yeah, and I will send you the link after so that if you wanted to make sweetened condensed milk without sugar, you can do that.
I didn't know that was even a possibility.
Yeah, I didn't think of it either until I saw the recipe. I went, oh, okay, I can probably do this. So, I mean, and if you want my horchata recipe, I'll send you that too. That's fun. It makes your house smell really, really nice. So, yeah.
I love horchata.
Sorry, I really got on this cooking kick. I've been making Filipino recipes. I've been making Chinese recipes. I made some new Tex-Mexy stuff. We're having fun here.
Well, good. I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah, so now I feel good. I'm setting smaller goals and growing.
Something you told me yesterday that really kind of stood out to me that I was very impressed with was that you were looking to try and fix your car. You were working on your car.
Yes, and it's worse than I thought, but yeah, I got the parts and now I'm going to, I know this sounds like basic stuff, but I'm auto mechanically, the R word I'm not allowed to say.
Gifted?
The other way, but so I'm going to be replacing my valve cover and all my coil packs and the gaskets therein when that all arrives tomorrow. So yeah, I have to learn to do that, just like I had to figure out how to repair my fridge when it was leaking and troubleshoot I woke up this morning, opened my fridge and it was a strobe show. Like seriously, I thought I was in a discotheque. I almost had a seizure. And so then I had to figure out how to correct that. Luckily it was a loose wire. But still, you're like, okay, I gotta figure this stuff out. Yeah.
All right. So, I know you haven't seen my intro video, but in it I kind of talk about not being, not waiting for other people to tell you it's okay, just to go ahead and take a shot to just try. And that's what I've noticed from what you were telling me yesterday and even today, that, you're just trying. We learn more by trying and not succeeding than we do when we try something we've never done before and it just works.
Yes, we do. We have to learn that struggle, that it grows us as a person, being able to handle that not succeeding.
I don't have to ask why if it just works, but we're kind of hardwired. Instinctually, we all ask, why didn't that work when we try something and we expected it to work and it did not? Then we go, okay, why didn't that work? And now we have opened up our brain to the potential of learning what's going on. So you're doing that with your car. You're doing that with your cooking. And those are really good examples of, well, I'm going to try and do this and hope it works. And if it doesn't work, well, then we ask why. Then we go find out why. And now we've learned.
Oh yeah,
that is progress.
That's part of the reason I like the cooking aspect, especially because every new recipe is its own attempt. So if I make a recipe and it works out good, that's great. If I make a recipe and I realize there are things that I can change, that's great. And I can either try again or try a different recipe. I have more options. And so it's less like being unsuccessful and more like being success adjacent, you know? So
Well, let me tell you, I have what I call the two windows of failure, which in my opinion is the only two ways to truly fail, and they're kind of choices. You choose to, okay? One way to fail is to just either give up or not try. That is failure because there is no growth. There is no progress because you're not even trying or you gave up. That's one window of failure. The other one is because we are hardwired to ask why when something does not go as expected. When I tried this and it didn't work when I expected it to, first thing we do is ask why. And for some of us, rather than pursuing that question, we just kind of, mentally punch it and say, shut up. And we don't want to go ask why. We just get mad because it didn't work. So we try the same thing again and again and again. And it's not working every time. And we get really frustrated and upset, which is, I'm sure you've heard the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
yeah, well, I mean, but there's also another aspect of that window, which is we try, it fails. Instead of asking why, we walk away.
That would be turning that voice off in your head that says why, because that voice is there. It always is there.
We just quit. We say, you know what? I'm not even going to make the attempt anymore. It doesn't matter. Even if it's a very important thing or something that would have brought us joy, we're depriving ourselves of that by simply saying,
right.
No,
You've now hit one of those two windows of failure. And in my opinion, those are the only two ways to fail, because everything else, if you don't turn that voice off and you say why and you go pursue that, you're growing. Now, some days we may have very minimal growth and some days we may have massive growth, but it's progress. We're moving forward. We're learning. We're becoming better. We're becoming better educated. We're becoming smarter. We're learning more things. And that brings satisfaction and growth and sense of fulfillment and self-esteem.
And that builds us up to, look, the last 4 or 5 days I've been running around with all the problems I told you about. You know what I did this morning? I got up and decided I was going on a walk with my wife and my dogs. Walk? I'm sorry. I'm the kind of guy that's like, if it's not downhill and I'm not rolling, I'm not going. So, but I got up and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go for a 1.5 mile walk out of the blue after, having a totally, complaining how bad my body hurts from all the different work I've been doing over the last 3 or 4 days. And I fell asleep and slept better than I've slept in months.
Good
and I
for
woke
you.
up feeling refreshed with a positive attitude and like, dude, I'm excited. Hey, wait, it's almost time to talk to my buddy. Let me go get my stuff set up. I mean, I was ready to go. And
That's fantastic.
it brings happiness, like it really does.
Yes.
And my family notices it, and they notice me in a better mood and me making the effort. Even my son was like, told his mom, he's like, Mom, you realize that all the things that Dad is doing, all these struggles he's having and this frustration, he's just trying to make things better for you and easier on you so that you can have an easier time. I hope tell him that you appreciate what he does. And like, I was like, dude, she told me that my 16-year-old said that. I'm like, wait, the guy who argues with me when I tell him to take out the trash, he's like, and my wife was like, of course, I appreciate you. I'm like, yeah, I know that. But my son, without my knowledge, went out and said, hey, look at how he's making progress, Mom. We should encourage this. He caught on and realized that part. And it's just been literally these 5 days of frustration have probably been some of the best days for my family in a long time.
Good. I'll tell you, you really do seem a lot happier since you moved to Texas.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have people trying to, I don't have other people overstepping their bounds of being grandparents and trying to parent my children and also trying to treat my wife as if she's still their teenage daughter and not their grown adult woman daughter, So and that's the big thing that she's realized is that there was no respect. There was no boundary. She couldn't set a boundary. I don't think she's going to care that I say this. Her mom she finally said, here's a line. Her mom crossed it. She hadn't talked to her mom in almost 2 months just because she's like, I'm setting a boundary until you are willing to see, what's the word I'm looking for? Acknowledge my feelings. I'm not going to play your game. It's phenomenal. And that's success and growth for her. Feels like she's grown as a person, realizing where we were stuck, even though you and I both know that I for years was telling her this is the problem. But now that she's out of it, she sees it herself, and she was like, "You were right. You and your friends were right." And I didn't. I wish I would have seen it sooner. So I mean,
Glad you all seem very, very much happier since moving to Texas. I don't like the fact that you moved to Texas just because you're not around, and I like having you around, but I'm very glad you're happier.
getting to a place where I can visit Utah. Gonna try to make it. I would like to try to get there at least once a year, maybe twice. We didn't do it this summer because we had a lot going on before all the things that broke. But she likes to send our youngest up there to hang out with his friends. So he goes up there for a couple weeks. So what I'm looking for, trying to get it to where when he goes up to visit his friends, I'll take a week or two so I can fly with him, go up and hang out with you guys and be a bum on the couch or under a pool table somewhere. Oh, wait, speaking of, we're talking about making progress. Let's see. Since I got to Texas, quit smoking.
Good for you.
Okay. I drink soda maybe once a week, and what else? I mean, shoot. Yeah, soda.
Well, you're exercising, you're fixing the
some
car,
exercise.
you're cooking.
Yeah, like
You're looking for healthier things.
Yep. I'm like, hey, I maybe don't want to die soon,
Well, I don't want you to die soon. I kind of like having you around.
No, but this is the thing. This is progress. I mean, come on.
Yes.
Look, I am not
Absolutely.
afraid to talk about my issues, okay? So, I've struggled with SI, and I am in a much better place now. But I've struggled with it my whole life. Do I still have issues with it some days? Yeah, but that's life. But I'm still here, and that's my growth, my success now is every day. End of the day, as long as I'm still here, I'm growing. As long as I'm still making progress. I had to get myself into that kind of a mindset. Otherwise, I flip back to the why. Why am I still trying? And I owe that to my family. And then this time in Texas, realizing we have to rely on each other, giving me back some of that.
I'm glad, very, very much happy that you seem to be finding yourself. And that's something I hope for all of us, honestly.
I'm happy that you're finally doing this. I mean, it's not we've talked about this for a while.
Yeah,
and,
I'm afraid that I myself am not above having anxiety and fear of trying new things. And this is definitely a new thing. And I'm sure there's going to be some growing pains in doing a podcast and figuring out everything from content to edits and all of that. The fear that I'm going to put this out there and people are going to go, nah, and they're going to walk away.
Some might, but you know what? I won't. And my family's not going to. And the whole time you're doing this, just know that, yeah, I may be in Texas, but I'm here. So anytime you need someone to bounce stuff off, I'll jump in and help you out. If you have a question
Thank you very much.
We'll critique along the way. But and just at this point, anybody who's still listening, for those listeners, understand that what we're talking about, this success thing, it sounds like him and I are just talking about nothing to do with success versus failure. But that's what this whole thing is about. Our little ramble here, that's what we're really talking about. I want him to succeed. I know he can. I believe in him. So I'm going to do everything I can to help him succeed. And just like he does everything he can to help me succeed, by being the kind of friend that I can call anytime and he's there to give me the positive support and feedback. And that is part of being able to be successful in life, is building a network of people who are in your corner and have no problem calling you out when you cross a line, but support you in everything else. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No?
And thank you very much for that.
Don't thank me. Just come on.
I can't tell other people on here that they need to try and shoot for their dreams and then I don't do it myself.
Exactly. Because we don't like hypocrites. Nobody likes that. So, but I don't know. I think your dream is way achievable, my friend. I think you're gonna do well.
Well, we're shooting for this and we're going to keep moving forward and we're going to see how far we can take this. As I said in the intro, we're going to stretch our arms and see if we can fly.
We will. This is your growth. Every episode's going to be growth. You're going to learn every single day. It's a perfect explanation of what you were talking about in the beginning of that. Your goal, have a successful podcast. You get to be on the steps to that now. So you're living that progress to a point as opposed to stagnating and God, I don't know how to do this. And
yeah. I'm afraid I was stagnating on launching this podcast, coming up with excuses not to and all of that for way too long, because I've been talking about doing this for years and we're just now getting going.
No, and it's good though.
Got to start somewhere. And so here we are. This is episode 1.
And I will be excited to see when you're like, bring on some of the other people that we know that you can foil with well. So here's something that I'm finding. maybe this will help you. I'm finding now that as a father, my goals obviously have changed. Betterment for my children. I want my children to do better. But I find myself when they are succeeding, that feels like I'm achieving and I'm growing because I'm seeing them make the good steps and the progress. So I guess it really comes down to the community you're in, the group of people you're with, and being able to succeed individually and yet celebrate all that together.
We need to, if we can recognize and make the changes in ourselves, because that's where all of our power and control resides, is in our own choices. And if we can do that, then we can influence the people around us, like our kids. And that will also bring us a sense of joy, because then we get that sense of fulfillment and that sense of, well, I did a good thing. My son will do better than me, or my daughter will do better than I did. She won't have to maybe struggle as much as I did to figure things out. But she'll have her own struggles, or he'll have his own issues that he has to overcome. None of us get away from issues that we need to overcome, whether that's trauma, whether that's just daily life, whatever it is. We're none of us trial free. We all have things we need to try and overcome.
And that's why speaking of, I just hope that I'm not passing my trauma onto my kids. I apologize. Sorry about that. But
No worries.
Yeah, you don't want to pass your trauma on because then you don't want your kids trying to fix your trauma because they can't fix it, So, and that's just, what does that do? That makes them feel like they're not being successful reaching their goals because they're trying to solve a problem that they're trying to fight ghosts. And that's our job as we get older. We each fight our own ghosts.
Like I said, our power and control resides in ourselves and our choices. We cannot control anybody else. We can try and coerce them. We can try and put a big influence on someone to make the decision we want, to achieve the outcome we want. But that's going to cause a lot of resentment. That's going to cause a lot of anxiety. That's going to make me very unhappy because I'm putting my happiness on the outcome of somebody else's power, as opposed to doing what I can myself to reach the goals or things that I want.
What can we do? So the real question is, what can we do to teach the next generation this now before they
like
get
I was
into
saying,
our old habits from watching us?
Like I was saying, they're going to fall into habits because of their watching us. So if we can learn, if we can change, if we can grow where we have the power and control, then the people around us will get that influence. Our kids will see that change and start to incorporate that change. Kids learn more by watching than by being told. My dad used to say a lot. He thought it was hilarious. Do what I say, not what I do. So what do kids do, regardless of being told that? We do what we're shown, not what we're told.
But what is
that
that?
happens
What is
a
that?
lot.
Monkey see, monkey do kind of thing, It's because I tell my kids that all the time. Do what I say, not what I do. I am not a good I'm a great example of everything not to do in life. That's what I tell my kids all the time. I'm like, and they're like, no, you're a good dad. I'm like, well, okay, so I got one or two things right, but really, and again, what does that do? That's me short-circuiting my own progress by saying I'm an example of everything not to do. That negative self-talk is so easy to get into for people who grew up a little different than now.
I don't think it's easy for people who grew up a little different from now. I think it's easy for everybody. That negative self-talk is awful. We all do it. We tend to get in our heads. It takes somebody we respect. It takes them saying one negative thing about us, and they don't ever have to say another thing, because we will pick that up and run with it. And we will echo that in our head for maybe years to come, maybe forever.
And it may not even be a negative thing. It might just be a critique to help us improve. And we take it personal and fall on our sword.
Yeah, that's true. We can take constructive criticism and turn it into a negative. That seems to be a very prevalent thing, especially in today's society.
And that, you know what, you're right. It might be harder for today's society because of that, because they're all online. So anybody who doesn't know anything about them can jump into their social media and say whatever negative that they can find about that person. And a lot of these younger kids, that affects them very deeply, even though it's some anonymous person on the internet. It's kind of like, I kind of hate that about social media, that these, people who are just miserable, like, hey, let's see how many people I can pull down today. But yeah, so
just, I think we probably ought to wrap it up here. But what I want to wrap it up with is just a saying that I heard once, and it was done in a humorous way. I think it is humorous, but I also think there's a lot of truth in it. And that saying is this, and I have no idea who said it. So please, nobody get mad at me for not being able to reference who coined this, because I don't know, but I like it. So if you know, feel free to let me know. I would love to know who coined this phrase. But the phrase goes thusly: everyone brings joy in life, some when they enter the room and some when they leave.
Good.
So we should probably try to be the ones that bring joy when we come into the room, not when we exit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's
Right.
very true.
Well, thank you, Dwayne. I appreciate you coming on and helping me out with my very first podcast.
I'm glad to be here, man. Anytime you need me, I'm here.
Well, I appreciate that. And as far as everybody else, I want to bid you adieu, wa, ahoy, whatever. I hope you all have a great day, and we'll catch up with you on episode 2.